That raises the question, what then do we do? Hi guys, and welcome back to the show. It's really great to be back in the workshop. But if you haven't seen the first video in this series, I'll point a link up here so that you can follow. But first, let's do a recap. That is a perfect 90 degrees. The first win of today. The 5. Come on, buddy! Yes! So let's see now. Yes! Well, despite all the cheering, this MFT is a complete failure. In the next video in this series, we will look at the reasons why this failed. You see what's left of the multi-fail table? This will be sacrificed to the Norse god of woodworking on Midsummer's Eve. Let's not waste any more time and get right down to the nerdy stuff. First, let's just look at drilling one hole as accurately as we can. And no matter how hard you try, there is going to be a little bit of uncertainty about where you manage to place that hole or drill that hole. As an example, I'm using this 10mm drill bit here, and let's just start with some basic things. For instance, the tip in the middle of this drill bit here, it's not necessarily exactly in the middle. And if you make a mark with your pencil, I'm exaggerating it by leaving the tip wide here. So say you make a mark across like this. You can tell that no matter how fine your pencil, there will always be an area and not a point where you try to hit. And there are a lot of these little inaccuracies, or I'm going to refer to them from now on as uncertainties. So even when you're just drilling one hole, there is a lot of uncertainties about where that hole will end up. So we've talked about the line you're drawing, we've talked about the tip of your drill, I mean how you're holding, how well you're able to hold the drill, for instance. And there's a lot of these small things that add up to, let's call it not an inaccuracy, but an uncertainty. And why am I call it an uncertainty? Because it's not given that you're on the line on the outside of this ring, so that you're being inaccurate, but you can be anywhere within this area here. And so you're drilling 2 holes because you're going to make an MFT. So you drill the next hole, let's say 2 more over, and we drill the next hole here. In this instance, it has the same uncertainty. Let's imagine that these 2 circles are the same size. But what I was doing was that I then used a jig to reference from this hole and that hole to where I placed my next hole. And by doing this, the uncertainty from one hole to the next will add up. Or maybe if you're a statistician or you know more about probability, can you tell me if it adds up or it's multiplicative? Anyway, it increases, that's the point. So the uncertainty, if the position of this hole here is based on the positions of these 2 holes, then the uncertainty will grow. So it will not be the same size as the second hole. It will be greater. And then for the 4th hole, it will be even greater. So what we can see is that the uncertainty is increasing the further down the line we go. And at some point it becomes useless, depending on our needs, of course, and I've increased the size of everything here. So what happened is that since I used a jig that was dependent on these two holes for the positioning of the third, say the worst case scenario here, if we go from the outside of this circle to the outside of this here circle. So this here gives us the worst case scenario for the third circle. You know, it's just, I'm not being exact here, I'm just showing you. So the third circle would be this size. And then from the second to the fourth, the uncertainty would be, I'm starting to think that this is exponential, by the way, but we'll leave that to the math people. Anyway, you can see that this is not going to be good enough for building anything. One of the reasons why you may or may not see this extreme growth of inaccuracy is because what I tried to draw here was the worst case scenario. But that's just one possibility in this uncertainty. You may actually hit quite good for some of the holes that you try to drill. And by the way, even if you're using an expensive metal jig, you still will have a little bit of this occurring. People seem to be happy with the good quality metal jigs, but the point here was to try to build an MFT without buying that jig. That raises the question, what then do we do? Luke, I am Nomad Makes. So the question then is, what can we improve and what can we not improve? The thing that we cannot improve is this. This here uncertainty, we can try to drill with a pillar drill, we can have a higher quality drill bit, so forth and so on. But basically, this is the uncertainty we have to live with. Our MFT will never be more accurate or have less uncertainty than the uncertainties I talked about in the beginning, like the width of your line, how good you are at aiming when you're drilling, and the quality and accuracy of your drill bit and so forth. That uncertainty there we have to live with. But what we want to do is we want to come up with a way of making a pattern without inheriting the uncertainty down the line. How would that look? If we take the same example as over here, you'd say that you have this amount of uncertainty, you have this amount of uncertainty, you have the same amount of uncertainty. So this is how it's going to look if we manage to find a way of projecting these holes without inheriting the uncertainty down the line. Now that we know why the MFT failed, the next step is to correct for that and come up with a minimum viable product or a proof of concept. So that will be the next part of this series. That is it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to leave a thumbs up. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. You'll find a Patreon link and affiliate links to products I use and recommend below. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.